All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining the webinar, Pursuing the Osteopathic Pathway, a 2021 Guide to Formative Assessments and Initial Certification. My name is Allie Blakewell, and I will be your staff moderator today. If you have any comments or logistical issues, please enter those in the chat function throughout the webinar. We will have ACOFP staff here to assist. If you have any questions during the webinar or during the Q&A portion, please enter those in the Q&A box. After the webinar, we will be sending out a survey, so please look out for that. And now I'm going to start Dr. Bowling's video, and he will be here for live Q&A after the video. So I'll get that pulled up right now.
Welcome to this Aobfp ACOFP webinar on osteopathic certification in family medicine. As the chair of Aobfp, I will be sharing information on pathways to Aobfp certification, the early entry initial certification exam, and osteopathic continuous certification in family medicine. First, let's look at a brief overview of the American Osteopathic Board of Family Physicians. The Aobfp has over 14,000 active diplomats. We offer primary certification in family medicine and family medicine and osteopathic manipulative treatment. Additionally, certificates of added qualifications are available in 8 areas. Aobfp is an all-volunteer board composed of osteopathic family physicians. The AOA, through its certifying boards, is committed to maintaining a highly reliable and valid certification and continuing certification process that is focused on patient safety through the demonstration of knowledge above and beyond licensing requirements. Through its Bureau of Specialists, BOS, and certifying board services, the AOA provides the support for its individual certifying boards. Innovative enhancements and streamlined processes will assure the long-term viability of AOA certification in family medicine. These innovative enhancements include ongoing review of item banks by the Aobfp board, development of a longitudinal assessment process that will replace the high-stakes OCC exam, recruitment of item writers, periodic review of test blueprint based on a table of specifications. We also now have available through the AOA a full-time medical editor, which will provide enhanced editorial review of our items. The OCC enhancements include component 3, the longitudinal assessment, which is replacing the high-stakes recertification exam. The cost will be included in the annual OCC fee. This longitudinal assessment program is being initiated in the summer of 2021, and the details can be seen on our website. As far as component 4, the current ACOFP and NBOME modules will be phased out. Specifics on that detail can also be found on our website. Component 4 will consist of attestation of participation in a practice improvement quality assessment activities through the 9-year cycle of certification. The diplomat will provide documentation to the AOA for this activity. There will be no additional fee for component 4. The annual OCC fee has been established at $225. This includes all costs for the OCC process. Our website, the Aobfp website, now has a drop-down menu detailing specific requirements based on the year the diplomat certification expires. There are 2 different pathways to initial certification offered by Aobfp. Those pathways, as seen on this slide, is the early entry or EEIC and the traditional. An osteopathic resident that is currently enrolled in any ACGME accredited family medicine residency may be eligible for the EEIC exam if they've met certain requirements. This is a shortened exam with 175 questions as compared to the 275 traditional exam. It is offered annually in January and can be taken in January of the final year of the residency. It is remotely proctored. DO residents must have completed 2 Aobfp in-service exams. This is known as ISE and has been developed by ACOFP with Aobfp's review. A resident must take 2 ISE exams during their 3 years of residency in order to be eligible for the early entry pathway. At the time of application, residents will be required to submit proof of taking 2 osteopathic in-service exams, ISE. The applicants will download a form that their program director will sign off on, indicating completion. An MD resident is eligible to apply for EEIC if they are enrolled in an osteopathic focused ACGME residency and have completed 2 Aobfp in-service exams during their residency. The EEIC is a shortened initial certification exam taken during the final year of residency. Compared to the traditional initial certification exam that has 275 items, the EEIC has 175 scored items. Another benefit of EEIC is that it is taken earlier during the last year of residency. We have finished the second administration of EEIC in January of 2021, testing just under 300 candidates. The exam is also offered at a reduced price of $400 compared to the $500 traditional initial certification exam. We have already heard from residents that they are excited to take a shorter exam, and they are pleased with the lower cost. By the end of residency in June, residents will have finished all of their certification requirements and will be board certified as soon as the AOA receives their training complete information. The traditional initial certification exam is offered twice a year in spring and the fall. It is also a remotely proctored exam and has 275 items. The fee is $500. Both the initial certification pathways, the EEIC and traditional, the resident has the option to take the Aobfp certification performance exam during the third year of their residency. Residents who have not met the requirement of 2 ISE examinations, or physicians who have been out of residency for several years but are still within the 6-year window of board eligibility, can sit for the traditional pathway exam. The 6-year board eligibility period begins upon completing residency. Certification in OMT has been decoupled from certification in family medicine. You can now obtain certification in family medicine independently of OMT. The options for initial certification are certification in family medicine or certification in family medicine and osteopathic manipulative treatment. Residents and physicians can take the OMT performance exam in the spring of the final year of residency, in addition to the cognitive exam. And with this combination, they will be certified in family medicine and osteopathic manipulative treatment. They can opt to only be certified in family medicine by only completing their cognitive computer-based remotely proctored exam. If an EEIC or traditional pathway physician chooses not to obtain certification in OMT and are certified in family medicine only, they may at any time take the OMT performance exam, and upon passing that performance exam, will be certified in family medicine and OMT. To maintain the OMT portion of certification, the diplomat has the option to complete 12 hours of workshop training every 9 years. There must be documentation of hands-on training consistent with the Aobfp approved format. The other option to maintain OMT certification is to take and pass the performance exam prior to the expiration of the certification. We are pleased to announce that the ACOFP boot camp has been approved as an option for diplomats to maintain their certification in family medicine and OMT. We've often been asked if MD residents are eligible for OMT certification. If an MD resident has completed an osteopathic focused family medicine residency and the OMM component as documented by the osteopathic educational director, they may be eligible for OMT certification. As far as upcoming examination dates, these are the dates that are scheduled for the various exams. The next administration of EEIC will be in January of 2022. Applications will open up in August of 2021. Residents can apply on the Aobfp website, and candidates will be asked to supply payment as well as documentation of taking the 2 in-service exams. There will be a downloadable form available once the application is live for residents to download and submit electronically or print for their program director to sign off on. This slide lists the next offering of our performance exam, which will be held in conjunction with AOA OMED conference in October of 2021 in Phoenix, Arizona. As of this date, we have been assured that there will be a live component, and we will be able to give this performance exam live in Phoenix. Obviously, with the day-to-day and week-to-week changes in the COVID pandemic situation, this is certainly something that you will have to watch carefully for any changes in plans. But at the current time, OMED is a go, and candidates who wish to take the performance exam can look for the online application on the Aobfp website. The traditional certification exam will be offered in September, again as a remotely proctored exam. Thank you all for attending the webinar, and I hope that this has answered many of the questions that you may have. At this time, we'll be glad to entertain any questions either through chat or live process. On behalf of the Aobfp board, I hope to interact with many of you live in the near future. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Bowling, for the presentation and for joining us live today. We did have a couple of questions come in here. The first one is, I have had osteopathic residents ask what the benefit is of getting board certified in OMT since they can still perform OMT without it. How have you been answering that question?
Yes, that's a question that we've often been asked, and certainly our training does allow us to perform OMT. However, if you're working in an institutional setting, if you're working in a clinic owned by a hospital system, you may not be permitted to do it without your certification. That would depend on the local system. And also, you could possibly not be able to bill for it through insurance plans if you're not certified. Again, that would depend on the individual plan. So yeah, you can do it, but I think the advantages of being certified in OMT certainly removes any barriers for not being allowed to do it. It's similar to if you're not certified in your specialty, you may not be able to get a job and be hired. So the local hospitals and insurances, they're the ones that would be in play in terms of OMT certification.
All right, thank you. The next one we have here, have the spring 2022 traditional exam dates been set yet?
Kristen, are you on? Can you answer that?
I am. They have not yet been released. We anticipate them being released in the next couple of months.
All right, thank you. I think we have time for one more here. It says, can you circle back to the component 4 section? I thought in the presentation it said that would be removed, but the Aobfp website says modules are still necessary.
Yes, that's the confusing part of the changes that are occurring in OCC. There's a phase-in period of everything. So it depends on the expiration date. And if the diplomat and y'all program directors go into our website under your certification requirements, then there's a drop down radio button to push to activate your certification expiration date. And that specifically tells you whether you have to do the modules and the high stakes exam. There's still a requirement for, I believe, it's 2020 and 2021 expiration dates still have to take the exam, and then they will start the longitudinal assessment. That's component 3. We've had a question that why do I, since I am taking the test in 2021, why do I have to start the longitudinal program? Think of it as going forward. It's continuous certification. So the longitudinal program is designed to test the cognitive functions throughout leading up to your next expiration date. As far as component 4, the MBOME and ACOFP modules are still required for those diplomats that certification ends up through, I believe, 2026, but that's all spelled out. So if you're expiring in 2025, click on that button and that will tell you exactly what your requirements are.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Bowling. We do have some more questions coming in, but we will have another Q&A at the end for everyone to answer more questions. So I think right now we will move on to Dr. Henwood, and then we'll get to those questions at the end.
Very good.
All right, Dr. Henwood, I'm going to go ahead and share your slides here. If you want to go ahead and unmute.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carol Henwood. I am the Vice President of the ACOFP Education and Research Foundation, and I am the chair of the Forging Our Osteopathic Future campaign. Next slide. As you all know, the battle for osteopathic distinctiveness has been a reality for decades. And perhaps today, with the single accreditation system, it is taken on an even more important need. We know that the importance of osteopathic family physicians cannot be overstated. And osteopathic family physicians play a critical role in the healthcare continuum, especially in rural and underserved communities. American public, we deserve to have an osteopathic physician wherever, family physician, wherever they live, as their doctor. So in 2019, the ACOFP Foundation embarked on a campaign to raise dollars with our goal of $2 million to ensure that osteopathic distinctiveness would be maintained. I'm proud to say that today, as of today, we have raised in excess of $1.6 million towards our 5-year campaign goal, which will serve to pay for the board certification for our 3rd year graduates, the initial certification. Next slide. So as you've heard, the initial certification costs are approximately $400 for the exam, $400 to $500, and $500 for the OMT practical. So a $900 fee is necessary to maintain your, or to achieve your certification in family medicine and OMT. We know that as in 2020, approximately 30% of the institutions are paying for reimbursement for residents for exam fees and for travel. And so our idea was to make grants available for these initial certification candidates so that they would cover their fees. And our guesstimates based on the number of residents we anticipate taking the exam is the need of approximately $400,000 a year to maintain this program. Next slide. In 2020, we did fund 100 grants, and in 2021, the spring certification, we did fund 110 certification grants with the goal of increasing each year the number of residents taking our exams. Now, as you heard from Dr. Bowling, there has been a pause on the OMT practical, and because the requirement is that you will be taking both the written and the OMT practical to qualify, we did elect to pay the fees for those persons who were granted the grants for the written, and we will reimburse them for their travel expenses and the practical up to a total of $1,500 as we re-embark on the practical exams being given. Next slide. As you can see, that we have states across the country having applicants being granted, and we hope that as the years go by, there will be all blue states here with everybody applying to the grants. Next. So we all know, and you know more than I as program directors, that the 2,500 most first graduates have at least $250,000 debts, and the average time to repay this debt for student loans is often 13 years. So the $1,400 or $1,500 that's going to be provided to the residents by the foundation would certainly go a long way to facilitate their taking the exam and ensuring our osteopathic distinctiveness. Next slide. So what can you do? You can share this program information with your residents. Our fall registration is now open. You can encourage them to apply to take both pathways or both tests, because we feel that the OMT practical portion is so important when it comes to what is an osteopathic family physician. And if you have other contacts through communication outlets with social media and asking your state or local AOA affiliated organization to share your information, share this information with its members, that would be much appreciated. On the final slide, you can see the contact information for myself and for Paige Zelensky, which is our program director and development manager. You can call me at any time. You can email me at any time for any questions that you might have. But our osteopathic distinctiveness is the goal for this particular program. We fully hope to reach our $2 million goal, and we have both industry partners. The comms have contributed. The rank and file osteopathic family physicians have contributed, and we're working together to preserve our osteopathic distinctiveness through certification. And I think my question and answer is at the end of the session, but I'll remain on. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Henwood. Yes, I think for the sake of time, we'll keep moving forward and save all the questions for the end. So next up we have Dr. Torres. Thank you so much for joining us today. Did you want me to pull up your slides?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So while we're having the slides pulled up, I'm John Torres. I work in Northern New Jersey. with ACOFP, I've been involved in helping to create the in-service examination and the CORTex examination on the side of resident training. So this has been going on for quite some time. There's been a lot of desire for trying to define exactly how predictive our in-service examination is for ultimate passage of the Aobfp certifying exam. There had been some competitors from Aafp with their in-training examination that had come out and offered values to predict successful passage of the certifying exam. And so for the last several years, we've been bombarded. And this has really been something that I need to give credit to Christopher Zip for, who has been a champion for getting this study completed so that we really could compare apples to apples. So we did, over the years from 2016 through 2018, we looked at candidates who were taking the Aobfp certifying examination, and we correlated that with scores of the in-service examination through ACOFP from 2016 through 2018. And what we were looking for was how often do residents who perform well on the in-service exam go on to pass? And also, how often do those who wind up being at the bottom of the curve go on to pass and or fail? So is this predictive in both directions, or is it a unidirectional assessment? Some background for some of the differences between the exams. For our examination, we are very purposeful in maintaining a separate question bank from the Aobfp exam, with a belief that really your certifying exam and your certifying exam should be two separate entities with separate questions to try and preserve the integrity of what that certifying examination should mean. Aafp takes a different perspective, and so they share their data from one to the other. And so we are kind of fighting an uphill battle here in that we do not have crossover of any of the question items. It really is a content and how those questions are written and how the examinations are formulated. Is it a reliable and a correlated relationship? So if we can go to the next slide. When we are trying to assess for examinations, there are a few different metrics that we can use. There's traditional psychometrician metrics that are used for this purpose explicitly. How does one cognitive examination predict another cognitive examination? And so if we look at those correlations that were offered up by, for instance, our competitor, the other opportunity that residency programs have to choose for their residency training exams. The Aafp Abfm correlations wound up between 0.68 and 0.71. So if we look at that and compare it to our performance, you can go ahead and click there for me, then you can see here that ours are actually very good, especially considering that, like I mentioned earlier, we have two separate question pools here. So in-service exam performance as a PGY1 is very predictive of your performance as a 2 and a 3, and also fairly predictive of what your board numerical score is going to be. You can see here that that persists throughout. PGY1 is probably the best metric. There are studies out there looking at COMLEX and other things, essentially assessing whether residents are very prepared from just taking their step 2s, and or how much changes with the generic nature of the content that we use as family physicians. Go ahead and next slide. But that really is not a metric that we as physicians are very familiar with, and that's not the metric that really Aafp has used to try and really determine how predictive performance on the resident training exam is for performance on a certifying exam. So what they used, and it's been established in several different studies that have been published over the years, is a concept that's very familiar to physicians, which is positive and negative predictive value, sensitivity, and specificity. Now, a caveat here, these are not tools that are intended for this purpose, but they are tools that we as physicians are very familiar with. They find themselves onto our exams. And so it does identify relationships. So if we go ahead and click again here, what we'll see is a comparison So here is our performance. So what we can see here is that our in-service exam results, it is not as a formative exam designed to have a pass-fail cutoff. So we artificially created one at about 10%. For comparison, Aafp's was 12%. So it is comparable in terms of where we drew that line. And so you can see of the 90% of residents who scored above that 10% cutoff, what percent of them went on to ultimately pass the in-service exam. And we can see here, this is cumulative data for all 3 years. And you can see that 99% of the time, if residents score in the top 10% on our in-service exam, they go on to pass the certifying exam, which then begs the question, is the converse true? If you fail that in-service exam, how likely are you then to go on and fail the board exam? And so of those 10%, the bottom 10 percentile, we followed them. And for there, the true negative, the likelihood that scoring, that being in the bottom 10% would lead you to fail the certifying examination was only 4%. So how do we rectify that big disparity? And the argument that I think makes the most sense is that our in-service exam does exactly what it's intended to do. It's intended not necessarily to predict these outcomes, but it's intended to identify our residents' strengths and their opportunities for improvement, to give them a subject by subject breakdown so that they can focus their efforts. Residency program directors can identify a resident who may be in need of additional support, possibly a corrective action plan, a study plan. Maybe it helps also for that resident to identify that they do have deficits and to take additional courses or do their own work prior to sitting for the certifying examination. And so I look at this data and think that the formative exam does exactly what we want for it to do. Go ahead and click. And so then how does this compare? So like I said earlier, the Aafp drew their cutoff line at 12% to our 10%. So I would consider those fairly equivalent. Positive predictive value for both of them, 0.99, 0.96. Numerically, our data is stronger. They did have a larger data set. And really, as I mentioned earlier, this tool is not optimal for making this comparison, but it is the gauntlet that's been thrown down and published over the years. Negative predictive value, you can see of our residents who score in that bottom 10%, many fewer of them go on to subsequently fail the certifying exam. Again, it may be a leap, but considering that that may mean that they're better prepared and they take that data and redouble their efforts to make certain that they're prepared for the certifying exam before they go to sit for it officially. And click. Comparisons now by year. So there's certainly an interest, like I said earlier, if you looked at the PGY1 to 2 to 3 and how predictive it was of one to another. This is just looking at performances by year and ultimate passage rates. So we can see that regardless of year, whether this is a PGY1, 2, or 3, it's 99% predictive. If they are in the top 10% or the top 90%, then they are 99% likely to pass the certifying examination. Breakdowns, again, here you can see that it's the same with negative predictive value. It is a little higher among PGY3s, possibly because of the shorter time frame for them to prepare. But again, I don't want to read too much into the data. Next slide. So this is really what I think we can take away, which is that our ISE is a high quality exam. And it is very useful in preparing our residents to pass the Aobfp certifying examination. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Torres. Again, we're going to go ahead and keep moving here. And we are going to move on to Bob Moore. So Bob, I'll get your slides up right now.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you're all at. Everyone, I'm Bob Moore. I'm ACOFP's Executive Director and Executive Director of the ACOFP Education and Research Foundation. Just have two quick slides. We'll bring a close to today's formal presentation. But just wanted to let everyone know that ACOFP and the foundation came together for a second year to help subsidize the ISE registration fees. Allie, if you can go to the next slide, please. You'll see here that the traditional price is $110, but we will for second year be charging $60. So ACOFP and the foundation, like I said, will be splitting the difference in terms of education grants for all residents to encourage people to take the in-service exam. This chart's nice, just there have been some questions in the chat. So I think this will help answer some of them, you know, what you would use the ISE for and what would you use CORTex for. You'll see here for the in-service exam, this meets Aobfp's EEIC requirement, as Dr. Bowling had mentioned earlier. That's not true for CORTex. The in-service exam also meets ACGME's basic requirement. That's not true for CORTex. The in-service exam and CORTex are both aligned, however, in meeting ACGME's osteopathic recognition requirement. For those of you who have been used to our formative assessments, you might recall us having an in-service exam and an in-service plus exam. The in-service plus exam traditionally was created to have a robust set of osteopathic focused questions that were more aligned with CORTex. Starting this year, moving forward, we're only going to have one in-service exam. We're calling it the in-service exam, and that is the robust formative assessment that's inclusive of all the OPP, OMM questions that you might have been accustomed to with the in-service plus exam. We're just calling it traditional in-service exam. So it has 265 questions, 190 of which are the traditional formative assessment in-service exam related questions. And then there are 75 designated specifically to OPP and OMM. So just wanted to clarify that. On the next slide here, you'll see that we, this past cycle, we had 163 programs participate in what we then called the in-service plus exam, and that included 1,659 residents. And we had 27 programs taking the traditional in-service exam, which is the one that we had sunset now, inclusive of 239 residents. So since people were really gravitating toward the robust exam that I just talked about, that we're now calling the in-service exam, that's the formative assessment that we're sticking with moving forward. On the CORTex side of things, we have had 64 programs, which is about 500 residents that took that to help adhere to their osteopathic recognition status. Dr. Torres is a great volunteer for us, and he oversees our item writing, which is something that we're constantly focusing in on, and always needing new item writers to make sure that the formative assessment remains relevant and top-notch, something that we're very proud about. And in this past year, we had 42 new questions written by the in-service exam work group and 33 written for the CORTex work group. So that's something that we continually invest in. With COVID, we had to adjust our approach a little bit differently, but that is often something that we do in person at NBOME's offices. So that's all we wanted to cover on this piece. And I know that we had a whole bunch of questions, so we have a good 15 minutes to open up the floor, Allie, for raising those questions so we can get those answered for today's attendees.
All right, yes, we have everyone here joining us for questions. So we'll go ahead and get started on those. It looks like quite a majority are here for Dr. Bowling. So I'll go ahead and start with this one. Will there be a way to regionalize the hands-on portion of the Aobfp boards?
Yes, I saw that question, and another one that's similar. Someone was asking, would the performance exam be given at ACOFP in the spring? Yes, we plan to do that. I can re-emphasize that OMED is a go. We will be giving it in Phoenix in October, definitely, as of today. We are discussing regionalization of the performance exam. We've got a backlog of people who have registered and were not able to take it because of COVID. So tentatively, we are looking at a December date for a regional exam. That's still under planning and discussion. But I think the fact that Phoenix is a go, we know that we can now move forward with planning for live in-person performance exam.
Great, thank you so much. The next one we have here, how can we make this easy to understand?
Yeah, I saw a lot of questions that Kristen had sent me that had come in before, and my answer is it's not easy. My advice is to get familiar with the Aobfp website. Go there, play around with it, go into your individual AOA portal, see what your requirements are, use the drop down, but that will help. It's really not as complicated as everybody's making it out to be. As far as, I assume the question deals primarily with OCC, the changes that have been continuing since it was initiated. As far as initial certification, again, you've got two pathways, early entry, and I saw a question where it asked if you had to pass the ISE. No, ISE is a formative exam designed for resident directors to help the residents prepare. So there's not a pass fail there. And that's component 3. Component 4 is we're making it much simpler because ultimately the modules and all of that will disappear, and it will be an attestation probably every 3 years to participate in a practice improvement project. Does that answer the question?
Not seeing anything come in, but I'll jump in if I see anybody answer to that. So the next one we have here, will the new system send us reminders of what is due?
We are hoping that the AOA will create a system that will be possible. That is all handled through the AOA and Certifying Board Services operations. We have had discussions probably for the last couple years, trying to assure that the system is easy, but I cannot give you specifics on where that process is right now and what decisions have been made. Let me take this opportunity. Kristen is online, and we want to thank her for jumping in. We are between certification directors in the Certifying Board Services staff. Jessica Dangles, who has been our certification director, has left the AOA for other work opportunities, and Kristen is filling in for us until the AOA hires Jessica's replacement. So hats off to Kristen, jumping into doing a lot of things that she is not in her job description, and we will be talking weekly. In fact, we have a call tomorrow. So thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. All right, so the next one we have here, can you still take the test? Is there an option?
You're talking about the OCC exam, I assume. That they're talking about the OCC exam. So as we phase out the option of the high stakes exam in the future, no, there will not be an option to take a high stakes exam. That will totally disappear once the phase in expiration dates are over. The AOA is going to 100% remote proctored processes. So the longitudinal assessment that is being kicked off June of this year. And again, refer to the AOB website as to what your requirements are, when to start and what to do. But short answer is there will no longer be a high stakes OCC exam.
Thank you. Apologize if you've answered some of these already. The next one here is, how is OCC working for those that have certified in the last few years?
How is it working? You mean, what are the requirements? You have to ask the diplomat how it's working for them. The requirements, again, go to the website and click on your expiration date, and that gives you the exact requirements. I think there have been bumps in the road. Keep in mind that the CME portion, that really has not significantly changed for the last year and a half, as far as the reduction of hours to 120 over 3 years. That's not changing. And then component 3 and 4, we've gone over that. The good news is there'll be an annual fee, $225. You won't have to worry about a registration fee for the high stakes exam. If you choose to take the OMT performance exam for recertification, there will be a fee for that. And there will be a fee for the initial certification exam and performance exam. So I don't know how to answer that question of how's it working. Judging from some of the complaints, and they have been few, but there have been some, I think the most difficult problem for candidates is the transition from a high stakes exam to an online proctored, remotely proctored process. There are obviously issues with that. Some people don't have access to high-speed internet. A lot of technical problems with that. And obviously the AOA is working to resolve that as we move forward. I understand that there is going to be a change in vendors coming up for that process. So hopefully we can work with the new vendor and solve some of those problems. And don't ask me any more about the new vendor or the process, because I don't know.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bowling. I have one here. If a resident is off cycle and scheduled to graduate at the end of September instead of at the end of June, are they eligible to apply for the EEIC during their final year of training, or would they only be eligible for the traditional certification exam?
Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that if they've taken the 2 ISE in-service exams, that they would be eligible to take the EEIC.
That is correct, as long as they took the 2 ISE exams and they're currently in their last year of residency at the time of application.
Thank you. Is the OMT performance exam still going to be offered at ACOFP in March?
Yes. If Bob will let us.
We'll be happy to let you.
Okay. Let's see. Do the residents have to pass 2 of the ISE Plus exams to qualify for early entry?
No, they just have to take 2 out of the 3 years. And the reason it's 2 is because some residents may enter the family medicine program after a 1-year first year in another residency or anything. So we did not want to shut out those residents that came in with advanced standing and will only be in the residency for 2 years. So they're going to be in the residency. They have to take 2 exams, 2 ISE exams.
Great, thank you. For MDs interested in OMT certification, as long as they pass 2 ISC and take EEIC, they can also sit for the OMT certification. Is that correct?
With a few caveats, if they are in an osteopathic recognized program and have verification that they've completed the OMM part of the curriculum, then they are eligible to sit. If they're in a non-osteopathic recognized program, they must document 50 hours of additional training in OMM and OMT to qualify for OMT certification, whether it's early entry or the traditional. But again, they would have to take the ISE exam to qualify for early entry. They can't take the ITE and then get 50 hours of OMT training and sit for our certification. To sit for the AOA, Aobfp certification in family medicine must take 2 ISE exams.
Great, thank you. The next one we have here says, I recert in 2021. Why don't I get credit until 2029?
Yeah, I tried to address that earlier. Think of it as the OCC, Osteopathic Continuous Certification, is designed to keep us up to date with current medical knowledge going forward. So when you when you finish your certification, when you're at the end of your certification time, historically you've taken an exam to certify that you have kept up with knowledge in the past. Now, instead of that, you're moving forward. So you take the exam now in 21, that says I've kept up with the knowledge, I'm okay to move forward. Now we start building a new resume through the longitudinal assessment. That is broken down into quarters, 10 questions per quarter online for 3 quarters out of the year, and a year of remediation. Now, that exam does have a pass-fail. So if you don't meet a certain standard, you've got the 4th quarter to remediate and catch up. So, and the cost of that is included in the annual OCC fee. I'm sure there's some people out there that say, well, I don't agree with that. Well, that's just the way it is. So that's the process that has been approved and will be held to going forward.
Thank you. We had another one come in here. Can MD or DO take the OMT portion only in addition to an Abfm exam, or is it attached to only the Aobfp?
That's a good question that I'm not sure I have an exact answer on. Since OMT is decoupled, then that hangs OMT out there separately. And the 50-hour of training would apply, definitely. Kristen, make a note of that. And we need to go back to our policies and procedures that we've submitted to the BOS and see what we submitted. I don't want to misspeak. Sorry, that's, I guess I'll have to circle back to y'all on that.
That's okay. Thank you. I think we have time for one more here. When will the OMT practical portion of board certification be resumed? Not sure if you answered that one yet.
Yeah, October at OMED.
All right, well, that was a quick one, so I guess we'll do one more here. How will the board certification be maintained in the coming decades? Will it still be 10-year recertification exams?
Yeah, I saw that question earlier. Well, it's never been 10 years. That's been AAFP's timeframe, I believe. We used to have an 8-year cycle. A couple of years ago was extended to 9 years to coincide with the 3-year CME cycle. It's my understanding that CME cycle may be changing according to AOA, what they do. But going forward, you will have 9 years to maintain certification. Now, within that 9 years, you have to be compliant with OCC requirements. So, for example, the component 3 longitudinal assessment, you have to do 3 quarters every year. And if you don't, and you fall behind on those requirements, then your certification may be suspended and you would have to catch up. At the end of 9 years, you must have completed all OCC requirements for your certification to move forward. So the new certificates don't have an expiration date on them anymore, but there is a 9-year moratorium or deadline for maintaining the certification going on. Now, wasn't all that real easy to understand?
Great, thank you so much. I think we are out of time here. We do have a couple other questions. Maybe I can send those over to you to get an answer here. So I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us today for the live Q&A. I really appreciate it, and everyone else that hasn't answered a question but is here and did a presentation. So thank you so much. I didn't know if there was anything else, Bobby, you wanted to add, or?
No, just want to thank everyone for your time today. We'll follow up. It's been recorded. And again, as Dr. Bowling said, if there's any other questions that we need to follow up, we'll look at the chat and make sure that we respond to those questions in the summary email that we send out.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you so much. And there will be a survey being sent out, so take a look out for that. But thank you so much again. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.